Systems Community of Practice of the Project Management Institute. This series of interviews were designed to bring you closer to the lives of some remarkable project managers, which you will hopefully find useful and insightful. On the last episode, we had José Pinto, and this time we invited Walter Ginevri. Walter is from Milan, Italy, and he's the current president of the North Italy chapter, founder of the project management consulting company Project Management for Complexity, and an active project and program management volunteer, namely with kids at primary schools. I'm your host, Luis Seabra, and I welcome Walter Ginevri. Welcome, Walter.
Welcome to everybody. I'm very pleased to be here and to contribute with my experience for your future involvement in the project. Welcome.
I'm very proud to have you here. I would like to start by the way you got into project management. You are an electronic engineer.
Yeah.
How do you start with electronic engineering and end up being a full-time project manager?
Yeah. After the graduation in electronic engineering in 1976, I started as a software developer, and then I conducted a project in IT, in software development, for about 15 years. And then I progressively moved to the project management discipline mainly for one reason, because I realized that in the software development, the main focus was on technical practices, on the application of technical principles and techniques. And in my perception, project management was more creative and involving profession. So thanks to the experience I had in the software development, I could apply and could extend my knowledge in project management in the area of the soft skill. And after 15 years, I progressively concentrated my attention, my profession on the, conducting projects in ICT companies, and not only in ICT companies. So today I can say that it was the right choice, because project management is really a very open and interdisciplinary discipline in comparison with other technical disciplines. So I strongly suggest for the people who are interested in addressing this profession to go on and to be passionate, because it's really something that you can learn every day, something new, and you can apply new approaches and continuously enrich your ability and your skills.
What do you think it was your best quality that helped you on the process?
It's funny to say that a few years ago I attended a fine presentation, a keynote speaking about his experience in the Serengeti Park in Africa. And he defined a model by identifying different category of people corresponding to a specific animal. And I performed this test. That was the name of the test is What Animal Am I? And my profile is typical of the wild beast. The characteristic of the wild beast is the resilience. Be resilient, to be resistant, and to be very focused on the result. And probably this is my let's say best quality in some way, because I'm very concentrated, and notwithstanding and some difficulty, I try to obtain the result in putting all the energies and all the passion in it. and this is my probably best quality. I have obviously a lot of defects. Mm, Probably the is difficult because the defects um, the it is not my role to identify the defects. So this is something that can do the people. There are people that know me. But probably one defect is that I am too. I use too frequently the direct language. Sometimes it's better to use uh, a smooth approach in the relationship with people, and sometimes I'm not so effective, and I prefer to use the direct language. This means that I am one of the worst user of the email, because in the email the use of the direct language is very dangerous, because in the email you lose all the aspects concerning the paralingual, the body language, and so the risk of being misunderstood or to creating a conflict is very high. In fact, I consider the email a very dangerous tool, but this is the reason why I'm, I try to avoid the danger of using the email, and I prefer the face-to-face meeting.
If you work a lot with people with other cultures other than yours, you'll find, and I know that's your case, you'll find for sure that different cultures react very differently with the same things. I mean, if you write the same thing by email to a Italian person or a Portuguese person or a North American, you'll have different responses.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, this is true, and as you know, Italian are very good speaker, and they use gestures in their speaking, hands and everything. The body language is one of the most powerful language for Italians. So when I speak directly with a person of another country, of another culture, it's, I, I, I cannot use my direct language because there is no danger to be misunderstood, because I can help and can mm, they can transmit a message that is more than my words. And if my words are not so perfect, my body gestures can compensate and can reduce the danger of being misunderstood, or the danger of creating a conflict or something bad. So for this reason, I think that the contact with other people is one of the most enriching experiences for a project manager. It's a great experience, and I prefer to have as now a direct dialogue, and not a virtual dialogue with a computer and with an email.
Right. I was just thinking, you started by saying that the learning process that you went through, um, uh, what I mean is, you still learn about project management at your age, your experience, all your activity on the PMI chapter. Do you still feel that you learn about project management?
Uh, you, I'm not sure that I understood well the question. What I my experience in the chapter was something special. So I think that my experience is peculiar, and is something that is going um, um, is something more than a professional experience. Why? Because in 2004, I was a manager in an ICT company. I had a lot of privileges, a lot of bonus, benefits, and something like that. But unfortunately, my company had a big crisis, And in the end of 2004, I lost everything: my job, my bonuses, and a lot of benefits. So from January 2005, I had to start from the beginning, a new profession as a freelance. I had to build a new network, new relationships with people, a new market in some way. And within this context, that it was really critical for a person with more than 50, more than 50 years old, the PMI was my, let's say, my survival opportunity. In fact, thanks to the networking provided by the PMI, I could build a new professional network. I could build new opportunities as trainer and consultant. And thanks to the participation in the chapter, to involvement in the chapter as vice president from 2006, vice president of education and certification, I could extend my knowledge in the area of the soft skills. This is one of the reasons why my experience in PMI was so significant and successful. The second reason was that I met one of the best teachers I had in my life. It was Carlo Notari, the former president of the PMI Northern Italy. I had the opportunity to work with him from 2006 until 2010 when he passed away for a terrible disease. And so this is another part of my life, professional and private life, that is special. And so thanks to this involvement in the chapter, I could learn something, really something new. Not only new techniques, new practices, new standards, but also new way of thinking of life, new way of living with people, of interacting with people, of spending my time in the society.
What was your last big discovery in the context of project management?
Not it's difficult to say only one discovery, but I try to be concise. Probably the main discovery was related to my experiences in the school, in the primary school. What I learned in this experience is that we can learn a lot. Volunteering in primary school is a sort of gym for a project manager. Thanks to this experience, I learned that primary school teachers are very excellent project managers, very agile project managers. They are very effective in applying flexibility in a very complex context, as in the class. And so the interaction between a project manager in a business context with a sort of project manager in the school context is a very positive interaction. And another recent discovery in my experience, not only in the school but in the business domain, is the effectiveness of the use of the visual tools. Visual tools, I mean everything that can visualize an element of a project, let's say a WBS, a project charter, a risk register, a stakeholder map, and so on. So thanks to the use of sticky notes, of Post-it, I could understand how is important the media that he used for developing a project. So instead of adopting good templates and very good templates, I think that it's more important to simplify the language. And in this context, the intensive use of visual planning is really effective. And this is probably one of the reasons of the big success of the agile and lean approaches. The intensive use of information radiators and everything that can promote the involvement, engagement of the people, the common visibility, the ability of discovering the tacit knowledge that is very important in a project. And so this is one of the recent discovery in my practical experience, and for this reason, I strongly suggested to my customer and to the people in the class to use and to adopt this kind of language, which is not a substitution of the traditional language, but is a way for putting together, for exploiting the advantage of the collective leadership.
Do you want to explain a bit what is that project or program, PMI at school? I mean the basic things of how you came up with it and what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's a long story. It started in 2006 when Carlo Notari, I mentioned before, had this great idea. He told me, Walter, we need to do something for the society, and the best place to start is the school. And the best place in the school is the primary school, when everything is starting. The new generation are prepared in this school, and so we must start from the primary school. I was obviously surprised, a little bit shocked by this idea. And Carlo said, I know that probably this is not your, it was not so easy to imagine the application of project management in primary school. But I know that your wife is a primary school teacher, so you have a good conflict of interest, you have a good reason for experimenting in the project management in this specific context. And so the adventure started in 2006. We had the opportunity to experiment the use of these practices within projects developed in the class by the teachers. For example, the organization of the end-of-year party, or the organization of a research on a specific topic, and so on. Something that the teacher has included in the school program. And thanks to the first experiences, we realized that this approach could be very helpful for the teacher in order to involve, in order to build a new project with the participation, with the direct involvement of the pupils. So the first experiments were very promising in terms of the benefits in the learning processes of the pupils. And when we presented this idea in the PMI Congress in Malta in 2008, the PMI Educational Foundation was present, was attending the presentation, decided to promote and to sponsor this approach. And thanks to their support, that was simply fantastic, fantastic. We could extend the application of this methodology in other countries, for example, in France, in Portugal, in your country, and this was one of the positive effects of the PMI network. And then, thanks to this set of experiences, we could consolidate our lesson learned and our approaches in a sort of PMBOK specific for the primary school. And it seems to be incredible, but now this framework, this document, is available in 10 languages, from Italian, English, Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, Slovenian, Romanian, and the last version is in Swahili language, the language spoken in Africa. So the experience in the school was really something magic. It started as probably from the intuition of a great man, Carlo Notari, and then it became like a, I don't know, you know, there's no, what is the name? the snowball effect. It was something that continued to create interest in the people. And today I can say that we have a lot of evidences that the project manager must be part of the life skill for the new generation. Today, I can say that I have no doubt about that. What I'm trying to do is to spread this message all over the world, and the help of the support of the PMIF is fundamental. So, what I can say to the people and to all project managers is, please try to uh, to, to do this experience, and you will learn a lot. As a senior trainer, I am now more effective thanks to this experience, because I can show to the senior project manager that the pupils in some situations are better than them in selecting for deliverables and in organizing themselves. So we can learn a lot.
Is that the kind of benefits that the personal, your personal gain that you get from being an active volunteer in so many fronts?
Yes, the benefits, the main benefits is that the application of project manager or project management uh, in in different contexts, not only in the business context, where the project management is the natural approach, but the application in different contexts. For example, in the school is something that can give you a better idea about what project manager is. The famous Albert Einstein said that if you are not able to speak, to explain something to your grandmother, you have no clear idea about that. If you are not able to explain project manager to the school teachers, you are probably not the best project manager. You need to learn something more. For this reason, you must be very humble, but you must realize that this is the place for learning something and for being a better professional. And another recent experience. I'm sponsor as project the Northern Italy chapter. We are sponsoring a project for the people in Africa, in Congo. The name of the project is Kubunina. We are supporting people in Congo for organizing and for generating an income through the production of horticulture, bee hiving, and other kind of activities. And we are supporting them with project management. Again, thanks to this experience, I could realize that in a humanitarian project, in a humanitarian initiative, project management is essential. Why? Because in a business context, if you lose, let's say, $100 is not so bad. You can survive. But when you lose $100 in a humanitarian project, you are losing something important, something that can help people in living better. So the return on investment of a humanitarian project is more important, is more tangible than a return on investment in a business context. And the project management can help you in spending the right time, the right money, and obtaining the best return on investment. So my experience is that in this specific context, in the social, in the good, and in the humanitarian project, we can do something great.
You have some peculiar experiences as a volunteer. I was just remembering that you wrote at some point in time, you wrote some of the questions for the exams for new PMPs. How did that happen?
It was it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago, so I have no, in this moment, I have no idea about the reason why. Probably it was only a curiosity, the curiosity of doing something, and probably it was related to the fact that sometimes when I passed the exam for PMP and then for the PGMP, I was asking, but what is the, 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 the the logic of this question? I was sometimes disappointed by that. So I decided to experiment. And I must admit that it's really difficult to write a clear question and mainly a clear explanation of the answer. So it's really, again, a good experience to be more humble and more effective in the profession.
You also had the great privilege to organize a congress for IMEA when the congress was in Milan.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
Again, it was a particular and touching experience. The reason is very simple. The Congress was held in Milan in May of 2010, and in January of 2010, my friend Carlo Notari passed away. So we, as a board of the PMI Northern Italy chapter, we were 7 people. We had to organize the Congress without Carlo. And what happened? It happened that we decided to do our best for the PMI, for the PMI Northern Italy chapter, but mainly for Carlo. And it was a demonstration that when the people have a strong commitment, a strong reason, a strong motivation for doing something, the result is simply the best. In fact, we had a fantastic performance. We had more than 900 people attending the Congress, and this is actually the record, the top performance in the EMEA Congress. It was not not overcome by the next congresses in Marseille, in Dublin, and the recent in Istanbul. So the reason of this result was simply the motivation, the human motivation of people that who lost a friend and president and who decided to do their best for the Congress success. So it was really a special situation, a special experience, but it happened.
Right.
That's life.
Going back a bit when you started with PMI, how did that complexity thing appear, and how come you ended up with a company named Project Management for Complexity?
Yes, the complexity was a recent discovery. For me, complexity was not something or familiar until 2008. In 2008, one person, one of the mentor of our chapter, Francesco Baranini, told me something about the complexity theory, the studies on the complexity in different fields, as in physics, thermodynamics, medicine, economy, and biology, and so on. And he suggested to explore the application of the complexity principles in the project management context. This was the idea. And I think that it's difficult now to explain in few words what complexity is. But what I can say is that project management is obviously full of common sense. Project management is the common sense applied by a lot of people in a lot of years. And so it's something that we can apply in in a specific context, because it's the result of a lot of common sense and a lot of experience. This common sense, for example, in the European culture, is based upon our history, the history of the scientific discipline, the application of the scientific approach in project management. For example, one of the main concepts in the scientific approach is the decomposition. If we have a complex problem, we can decompose this problem into small pieces in order to manage them. And this is the principle of applied in the construction of the WBS. In the complexity theory, there is another point of view, another perspective. Complexity says that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. In a complex system, the whole system is not represented and described by the sum of its parts. There is something more. Something more means that all the relationship between the elements of the system can generate new interactions and new behavior, and can generate an evolution of the system itself. So the study of complexity is a way for extending the view and the application of project management principles. Instead of considering the typical decomposition approach in the complexity, we can extend this approach to a wider perspective in order to take into consideration the mutual influences between the elements, for example, the stakeholders. Another point, for example, is that in engineering and in project management, we study the cause and effect relationship. We find an effect and we try to derive the cause of this effect. This is the typical approach when we have a problem. In a complex system, there is no one-way relationship between a cause and effect, but there is a circular relationship. The cause determines the effect, but at the same time, the effect can influence the cause. So, with the complexity, we have the possibility of extending the application of the standardized practices in order to be more effective in managing uncertainty, in managing the continuous evolution of the project context. So it's not an alternative, it's something that can be added, that can integrate into the traditional approach. And so for me, it's again a common sense, but is the common sense of a wider brain, or of an approach that is more open to consider and to read the reality from different point of view. It's a way for, in other words, for opening our minds.
That's a very nice way to put it, because for me, project management is mostly about common sense. And what you say is that you can take things like complexity and make it part of your common sense. Is that it?
Yes, exactly. I agree with you. It's only we must have the ability of extending our way for applying the common sense. And this means to be open-minded and to be more, let's say, intercultural. In which sense? For example, if we compare the typical approach of a Western people that is based upon the construction of a model and the execution, the implementation of the model, let's say design and implementation, and if we compare this approach with the typical approach of a Chinese person, if we compare the approach of Sun Tzu in The Art of War, we can realize that in this approach there is no a predefined model of the reality. but only a careful observation of the reality in order to find out the carrying factors that can generate an opportunity. So in this case, instead of design and implementation, we have observation and exploitation. It's something different. So the best project manager is the person who is able to combine these two approaches, not only one, but to combine both, depending on the project complexity. If the project is very clear in terms of objectives, in terms of stakeholder perception, in this case we can adopt the classical design and implementation. But if we are in front of a very complex project, probably it's better to observe, to forget the plan for some time, and to decide in the present what is the best action to do. So it's a mix of the two cultures, and the complexity is another is a source that can help you in accepting these two different different approaches.
You've done quite several presentations, not only on the May congresses of the PMI, but also on the North American ones. And you've talked about complexity on some of those. Is there any of the topics that you brought to those congresses on your presentations that really move you somehow?
Sorry, I didn't understand the panel. What you mean? The topic that I presented, that I applied this.
I mean, you're very passionate about several topics. One of which is complexity.
Yeah.
And you made, I think, constant presentations on the EMEA congresses.
More or less, yes. I skip only one edition. I don't remember when. Probably it was in Marseille. I was not presenting anything, but from 2005, maybe every year I presented something.
Yeah, and I've had the privilege to assist to some of those. But what I wanted to know if there's some other topic that you're really passionate about.
Yes, I was confusing the. There was another topic in addition to that, and it was an initiative that we, say, as the Northern Italy chapter, we developed in 2010, 2011. This initiative was aimed at spreading and promoting the adoption of the PMI best practices in the small and medium enterprises. It's curious because in Italy we adopt the acronym, depending on our language, for small and medium enterprise, and we say piccola media impresa. The acronym corresponds to PMI. So for this coincidence, we could name this initiative PMI for PMI. And it was really a great experience because we had the opportunity to collaborate with a dozen of entrepreneurs of small companies located in Brescia. Brescia is one of the most popular industrial districts in the north of Italy. And during this experience, we adopted a simplified project management life cycle. We adopted a very simple set of tools for supporting the project activities. We call it the survival tool, something that you need for surviving. And it was a great experience because we understood that the approach for a small and medium enterprise is not a simplified approach, something that you can do by using the PMI framework and simplifying the framework. A small company doesn't mean a company that is not complex as a large company. In some way, in some companies, the complexity is even higher because few people with a lot of tasks to manage, with a context that is continually changing. So it's really complex to manage the business in this kind of environment. So this experience was really very helpful, and this is the reason why I'm going to present and to continue this study and to present a new findings at the next Congress in New Orleans in October. Together with my colleague Maria Cristina Barbero, the treasurer of the chapter, I'm going to present a proposal that can be effective. We do believe that it is in the small and medium enterprise, for the small and medium enterprise. And this idea is based upon the adoption of the ISO 21500, the new standard for project management provided by the ISO, together with the use of visual tools I mentioned before. So our idea is that if we wanted to create a bridge from the PMI to the small and medium enterprise, probably we needed to put the ISO 2000, I don't know the number is long number, so it's 21500. We need to apply this new standard from ISO in order to create this bridge from the PMI to the small and medium enterprise. As we know, this ISO standard is based upon the PMI framework, so there is a lot of reusable processes and concepts, but maybe that thanks to the ISO that is more popular in this kind of enterprises, we can have more success, more credibility, more availability to apply the project management in these companies. So it's something that is I'm going to present, and this is one of the reason why I try to continue this study. Don't forget that in Italy, the small and medium companies generate the 74% of the GDP. 74%. We survive thanks to them, practically.
It's amazing how the things that you do as a volunteer. I mean, they're not small things or irrelevant. They're in fact quite huge, like the PMI at schools, your work with complexity, this work with small and medium enterprises. How do you find the time to cope with all that? Where do you find the energy to do it all at the same time? How do you do it?
No, I'm not. I'm a normal person. I'm not a Superman. Not me. No, this is only the result of a choice. Obviously, I am more than 60, so I can try to spend my time in a different way than I did in the past. So my choice is to spend half of my time for the PMI and the rest for the business. So this is a privilege. But I must admit that it's not so easy for everybody to do the same. But in my case, it was a choice, and I can maintain this balance between the professional activities, the activity that can generate an income, and the other activities as a volunteer. But what is the the effect of this choice. The effect is that if we can spend our time as in volunteering in the school, or in studying the complexity, or in applying the project management in a small company, at the same time we have more information in our brain. We have a knowledge base that is growing every day, and this means that we are more effective and we can have a lot of opportunity in terms of new engagement. So in terms of return on investment, I can say that the more I spent for the PMI, the more I receive from the business in my business activity. So it's a win-win situation. It's not something that create a sort of damage in my business activities. It's difficult to maintain this balance, but every time I spend, for example, one day in training people, in training teachers in the school, I know that I can have more engagements as a trainer from the business companies. This is for sure, for sure.
That is great. If I asked you what was the thing that made you the most proud, what was your biggest achievement as a project manager, I guess you'd have some trouble to name just one thing. But
no, in this case, I tell the truth, and probably you will be surprised. But my best achievement in terms of the experience that had the most significant effect in my profession was a failure, not a success. Not a success. It's not something new. You know that if you are a chess player, you learn more when you lose, not when you win. That is a clear rule if you are a chess player. Obviously, you must avoid to lose all the games, but when you lose a game, you have to think about the reason, and you can learn a lot. So in my experience, I was the program manager of the most important initiative that was launched in my companies in 2002. And I was project manager for this initiative for 2 years, 2002 until the beginning of 2004. This was a great turnaround program. It was aimed at recovering the difficult situation of the company and to rebuild the business and to restart from a bad situation. Unfortunately, this program was not successful. Unfortunately, the company at the end of 2004 was sold to another company, and I decided to change and to leave the company. I cannot say if this failure was related to my role of program manager or not. Obviously, I had a responsibility, but what I learned in this experience was a lot of things that I would apply in the future, in the next years. So, as program manager in these 2 years, I had the possibility to understand the main difference between a project and a program, to understand the main difference between a business project for a customer with a project for the internal organization. So it was, from the point of view of lesson learned, a huge source of lessons of new ways for applying this concept. So if I have to speak about my best success in this case, probably this is not something that I can be proud of that. But at the same time, I think that from my seeing this experience after some years, I can say that it was a great experience, even if it was not successful, unfortunately. But this is the truth. That's life again.
Yes, but it's at least it's funny that you find such an experience as an achievement when you have I don't know how many other things that you must be very, very proud of. It's very weird, I'd say. But knowing you, I know how you must the logic behind it. I understand that. We're over 50 minutes with this talk. I'd just like to ask you just two quick questions, and then we wrap it up. Okay. The first thing, and being you someone with a huge experience in training and in the field with your consultancy company, what would be your first recommendation to someone starting on project management?
First recommendation, as an engineer, I was trained to find the optimal solution. The optimum was the target. My training, in the school, I was training for this. In the project management, I think, my personal opinion is that we must apply another principle. That is the principle of well enough. Well enough, in most cases, is better than the optimum. If we try to reach the optimum, we spend a lot of effort, and sometimes, and very often, we are frustrated by the result. If we apply the well enough principle, that doesn't mean to be superficial. Absolutely. We can obtain more. If we reduce our expectation from a more realistic point of view, being transparent, being humble, being correct and ethical, we can obtain more. So my suggestion is to focus on the well enough principle. And there are a lot of ideas in my mind now, but this probably is not so popular, but I strongly suggest to a project manager that it's important to read books on project management, but I strongly suggest to read other kind of books. Maybe that in a proportion of 20% project management, 80% or other disciplines. Because project management is not a discipline, but is a mix of different disciplines. And if you want to be effective in our profession, it's better to read a book on ethnography, and I don't know, neuro-linguistic psychology and something like that, instead of reading the book of The Last Stand. So it's something that I suggest.
And you're not suggesting?
Let's focus on the discipline, on the book, on this discipline, and to read something different.
And you're not suggesting something kind of related to project management, like the art of war that you just mentioned a while ago. You recommend that people read really other kinds of topics.
Yeah. For example, one interesting book that I suggest is The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. The Black Swan is a way for opening our mind, for understanding that if we focus on the probabilistic approach, we try to fail. We risk to fail because the probabilistic approach doesn't consider the unexpected event. So in not in all projects, but in a lot of projects, the black swan is present. And if you know, reading this book, I understood why it's important to have this perspective, because we are trained in considering each event as explainable by a law, by a model, by an algorithm, by a statistic. But in the reality, this is not always true. So, again,
Okay. Just one last
yeah.
question that I'm really curious to know. Who would you like to see next on such an interview on your place?
On my place, uh, I mean, in terms of people of the PMI, but one of the person that I met in the PMI recently in the PMI community was a person from Portugal. Was the person who um, spent a huge effort for promoting the project management in the school of Portugal. It was Isabelina Jorge. For me, she's a fantastic person, a person that can transfer to the people the same passion and the same enthusiasm. And it's a great manager, not only a volunteer. So I had an excellent relationship with her, and thanks to her, I could understand more uh, in terms of new practices and new approaches that can be adopted in the school. So for me, Isabelina is really a great witness.
Somehow I'm not surprised by your suggestion. It makes
It's
perfect sense.
not because you are a Portuguese, but because really Isabelina is a special person.
She is.
Mm.
Okay. I'm really going to try to get Isabelina to do one of these interviews, maybe in the next few months, because she's really great and she has a huge experience in project management that she shares with all her natural goodwill with well, everyone. So yes, she would be a great person to be here. Well, Walter, all I'm left to do is to thank you very, very much for your time, for being available to do this interview. You mentioned several things that are really important and really relevant in project management. I hope that the people watching this interview will find that also. And well, thank you very, very much, Walter.
Thank you for your decision to involve me in this initiative. Every time I have opportunity to speak to the people of the project manager community, I'm happy because I know that I have in front of me people with the same passion, with the same curiosity. So for me, it's a family. I consider the PMI as my second family, so the project managers are part of the second family. For me, it's a good time.
It was a really And it was a real privilege for me to do this. Thank you, Walter.
Thank you, and bye.